Welcome to the UGC program ePathshala. The course is on Japan, UGC Module 35, that's 35. The theme is India-Japan relations. The objectives of this module is to introduce you to the multiple aspects of India-Japan bilateral relations, covering almost more than a few areas such as history, culture, economy, politics, diplomacy, and even the security areas. The mechanism for conducting our bilateral relations for last so many years have expanded over years. When you reach the end of the module, you will be in a position to judge the importance of our bilateral relations with Japan. At the same time, you will be in the position to know how important it is in relation to Asia and the Pacific at the world large. History of India-Japan bilateral relations date back to centuries. It was actually in the 6th century that precisely 558 AD or 532 AD that India-Japan first contact was established by introducing Buddhism to Japan. As first Buddhism was introduced to the imperial family, once the imperial family adopted Buddhism, then trickling down at the society level was far more easier. Gradually, it is Buddhism that has spread India's interest throughout Japan over a long period of time. And also during freedom movement that India fought against the British, Japanese assisted India via Indian National Army that was led by Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. India had signed quite a few treaties with Japan hitherto, but however, the first treaty that India signed with Japan was in the year 1952, that was peace treaty, and subsequently India's role in according freedom to Japan from the occupation era was lauded by all the Japanese sectors even today, and Japan started providing yen loans to India from the year 1958, and since then till today Japan has been a major official development assistance provider to India. And moreover, particularly when we reach the 1990s, in 1998, when Pokhran nuclear test was conducted by India, Japan had suspended most of their loans to India. However, ongoing projects loans were retained, no fresh projects were announced. The present phase. Since the year 2000, India-Japan bilateral relations have picked up pace and increasing number of visits by political and business leaders and also cultural personalities. Huge projects with Japanese investment and development assistance have come up in India in different places. Such sectors as infrastructure, industrial parks, joint venture and huge bridges, flyovers, expressways, river cleaning, power generation and so on. Japanese assistance to India also extend to such national huge projects like Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor, Chennai-Bangalore Industrial Corridor and metro rail systems at different cities, and also freight corridor, then New Delhi, Chennai, Hyderabad, Bangalore, Chennai are potential areas where metro systems will be extended to within cities and between cities. The Indian and Japanese national flag can be seen and appreciated in one slide here. The bilateral treaties and agreements that have been signed between India and Japan since the year 1952 till today have been actually the structure on which the relations are conducted. The first treaty, 1952, Treaty of Peace, and second was Commercial Air Services Agreement signed in the year 1956. Then Cultural Agreement followed in the following year. Agreement of Commerce also to facilitate the trade between two countries. Convention for the avoid of double taxation also was signed in the year 1960. Agreement on cooperation in the field of science and technology was signed in the year 1985 when our former Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi visited Tokyo and signed several treaties with Japanese facilitating exchange of knowledge, research and research benefits between the two countries. Japan and India also have signed comprehensive economic partnership agreement in the year 2011. From the same year, August, it came into effect and aims at clearing away taxation on 94% to 95% of products that are traded between the two countries in the next 10 years, which is going to make really a landmark difference between the two countries' present scale of agreement. and also the agreement between Japan and India on security, social security area have been very important since the year 2012. Economic and commercial cooperation between the two countries have been on marvelous scale. The economic assistance Japan provides to India are in different forms. One is loan, other is grant, and yet another is technical cooperation. By the fiscal year 2013, Japan had lent to India 365 billion yen and grants part was only 1.6 billion yen. However, the same year technical cooperation accorded to India amounted to about 3.48 billion yen. India, Japan, the two systems have got synergy. If they are exploited to the full, both countries can look forward to a greater days in the coming years. India was a resource provider only to Japan for a long time, especially iron ore. That was during the years immediately after war when Japan was rebuilding its economy. However, gradually such projects as and sub-products as gems and jewelry, information technology projects and also information technology enabled services have entered Japan. However, this year onwards, we are also seeing a new product in our export basket, that is rare earth material. Japan actually had a capital and technology provider to India for a long time, that is through ODA, that is Official Development Assistance. India has been number one recipient of ODA for a long time now. Then FDI, that is Foreign Direct Investment in India, made by Japan, has been expanding, covering different sectors over a period of time. Bilateral arrangement is also a synergy that caused transformation in Indian economy, and such growth as 7% and above, close to 7.8% this year as expected and forecast by many international rating agencies, have been in favor of Japan and also in favor of India, because Japanese can expect to double their investment in India. And reforms is a need of our both in India and in Japan. India, for example, is challenged for more than a decade in reforming tax sector, in reforming land acquisition areas, and also in reforming the labor sector. So unless these reforms come about, which may not be greatly appreciated by Japanese, and their investment may not proceed smoothly towards a large figure. However, Japan is not free from any challenges. They are actually having challenges in social sector, social welfare reforms, then also at the same time growth challenges they are facing in the economy. Political reforms are necessity also. However, India and Japan today, we see both of them are facing the challenges through reforms. However, Japan is very slow as far structural reforms are concerned. India and Japan have thus set a target of $25 billion in their bilateral trade, which is achievable, however, not in the immediate future. Though at present we have reached $16 billion, and this $16 billion is a very sorry figure, it's a very low figure. However, India's export to Japan amounts to about $6 billion. Our deficit in trade with Japan also is about $6 billion. This need to be rebalanced in the years to come through reforms. Economic and commercial cooperation between the two countries have been on marvelous scale. The economic assistance Japan provides to India are in different forms. One is loan, other is grant, and yet another is technical cooperation. By the fiscal year 2013, Japan had lent to India 365 billion yen and grants part was only 1.6 billion yen. However, the same year technical cooperation accorded to India amounted to about 3.48 billion yen. Japan has gone through different phases since World War II. That is high growth period from the year 1952 to 1972. The oil crisis that hit Japanese economy and industrial structure very deeply had occurred in the year 1973. Subsequently, the lessons Japanese learned from oil crisis were implemented. Research and technology, research and development budgets were doubled. Newer technologies were applied in the production process, especially in high technology area like automobile production and also telecommunication and electronics production. And these are the two really monopoly area in which Japanese have retained their copyright, their patents, and also have been assisting developing countries by providing technology for production and growth reasons gradually. Japan's last 2 decades reference to the 1990s and the first decade of this century. There is also, particularly at present time, a fear of a third recession, and high public debt in Japan is used and abused in the sense that Japanese annual GDP, that is gross domestic product, it's about $4,000 billion, and Japanese public debt is more than $1 trillion, meaning 250% of debt burden, which is also 250% of GDP Japan is presently carrying, that needs to reduce it via reforms, via financial tightness. However, this is not coming very easily and very faster. Political and welfare challenges also Japanese are facing. To speak about welfare challenges, the state is incurring huge budget annually to meet the elderly medical care. Actually, in Japan, population is aging. 25% of the Japanese demography today is constituted by the elderly population who are aged more than 65 years. But birth rate in Japan is also already declining, that not many children are born. For example, very last year, calendar year, ending with December 2014, there were about 280,000 less children born compared to the previous year. More than all this, it was the year 2011 when triple disaster occurred in Japan, the impact of which, the challenge of which is too deep, spreading virtually to all the sectors in the national life. And also, radiation leakage in the Fukushima nuclear plants have caused very serious challenges to the administration in terms of their efficiency in balancing the energy requirement. It is since all the 54 Japanese nuclear plants are shut down, there is a dire need for diversifying the dependency on nuclear resources. However, alternative energy dependency is going on, and unfortunately, Japan decided, being the very first victim of the nuclear attacks during World War II, now they have been restarting their reactor with Sendai plant in Kyushu area starting last week. However, there are more than nuclear challenges in Japanese society. Politics and political process, political system have to also undergo serious changes in the years to come. Once the World War II was over, Japan entered into Allied powers occupation era. That was right from 1945 when the war ended up to 1952. During this period of occupation, series of reforms were introduced to Japan to clear political, economic, industrial, production mess. More importantly, it was moving away Japan from the military state to a civil state. That was the achievement. Plus, a constitution was written by the American leadership of the occupation authority and introduced in Japan, which till today has not been amended to. The benefits of the American occupation rule was enormous to Japan. That is, especially after World War II, till about 1972, the entire Japanese economy registered a continuous more than 10% of growth for 20 years, that is from 52 to 72. However, the year 1973 brought the first oil crisis. Second was in the year 1978. During this oil crisis, which was actually a political decision of reducing the supply and hiking the cost of oil, had bent Japanese economy much downwards, and it is around this time Japanese government has hiked the R&D budget both in the government and in the private sector. In Japan, contrary to India, R&D in private sector constitutes about 75%, and only it is 22% that is spent by Japanese government for research and development. And the outcome and also the benefits of the R&D have been in the newer forms of technology which was invested in production process, thereby giving lead to Japan throughout the 1980s and 90s in world market, say in two sectors clearly. One was in automobile and second was in the electronics and high-end electronics product. Until today, Japan ruled the roost in the world market in these two sectors. However, it is of late that South Korea, Taiwan, Singapore and even United States, different European countries and China of late have entered into this market. India got benefit from the Japanese in form of capital flow into India. Japanese investment in India to begin from 50s was only in the form of extracting resources, that is particularly iron ore, which went into Japan during the modernization of post-World War II period economy and industry. However, it is India that remains still today one of the largest recipients of ODA. However, it is the only source for India from the foreign aid, foreign donation in the form of loans. ODA come to India in three forms, particularly to two different sectors. One, environment related projects, the other one for infrastructure building, joint ventures, etc. And in both the loan forums, one in the area of environmental loan come with a reduced rate of interest, that is 1.5% annually, with a repayment period of 30 years and a grace period of another 10 years. However, general loan come to India from Japan, particularly ODA type, is with a higher rate of interest, that is 1.8%. Repayment period here is 35 years, and also the interest grace period also is another 10 years added to this. However, India now, after China, after Indonesia, remains the first ODA recipient for last 8 to 9 years. Actually India's profile has lifted in the global economy, that really it is not ODA, it is a higher growth rate in India, entry of India into information technology sector, information technology enabled services sector, then biotechnology, phenomenal increase in the call centers, BPO, service industry, and all this put together is actually turning India into a global economy, a strong and a basic part of global economy. Such city names as Bangalore, Gurgaon, Hyderabad, Noida are all global names today world over, and there are so many multinationals companies located in these cities and also in some of the smaller emerging cities in India. Japanese companies are also present there. As long as Japanese investment in India and contribution to infrastructure multiplication in India, we could not escape citing the example of Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor and also Southern Corridor, Bangalore-Chennai Industrial Corridor, and arrangement for Indian rare earth material exports hereafter. It is China which commands 95% of resources in rare earth sector, and it is China which was supplying maximum to the whole world. India also has some deposits of rare earth. It is only last year that India and Japan have signed an agreement to supply from India rare earth material to Japan, especially to electronic industry. About 15% of Japanese requirement India can supply. About reference to DMIC, which is already said, Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor, which is about 1385 km plus, 6 of Indian states, that is Delhi, then Uttar Pradesh, Haryana, Rajasthan, Gujarat and Maharashtra will all be covered under this sector. There has been a tremendous progress introducing newer and newer flyovers, introducing newer industrial towns. For example, recently inaugurated in such city called or developed newer industrial township called Nimrana. There are 42 Japanese industries already set up, 38 are in progress, which is mostly catering to India's automobile industry's requirement in terms of parts. India-Japan economic relations are not confined to only investment and receiving loans. It also extends to that field as trade. Bilateral trade between India and Japan now stands around $16 billion a year. However, very recently it had touched even $18 billion. Subsequently, we returned to $16 billion. Some of the products that are really imported, Indian import from Japan, such commodities like heavy machineries, electrical and electronic gadgets, toys, this is a reference to robots, and also gaming systems, new computer games, and assisted by animation actually. Pharmaceutical products are another one which are also having sent from India. Biotechnology project, plus also in the transport equipment. In the pharmaceutical product, for example, in the last 3 years, there was a great Japanese investment done in India. That is, Daiichi Sankyo pharmaceutical company in Japan had entered into agreement with Ranbaxy of India. At the same time, Docomo, which is very popularly known telecommunication service and servicing company in Japan, also had entered with Tata company with India. With these two companies entry into Indian investment sector, actually Japanese investment had increased, and India ranks even now 5th in the Japanese trade. Okay. Trade between India and Japan, though figure is not very greatly impressive, that is standing around $16 billion today, has been below the potential that India has. It is infrastructure industry which is always a complaint from the Japanese side, although reforms relating to labor, tax are also further complaints from the Japanese side. Unless India addresses this, Japanese trade with India cannot greatly improve. We end up sending less and we end up receiving more from the Japanese side. The target of $25 billion that we have set to achieve very soon probably appears to be achievable, but still not very immediately. And India's exports and deficit are almost same, that is around $6 billion, which is not a healthy trend as far India is concerned. Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, which is in short called CEPA, CEPA, and this brings benefits to both the partners, that is India and Japan, in the years to come, because 94% of the taxation levied on different products between the two countries traded is going to be eliminated in next 10 years. Once this is achieved, this will enhance the prospects for trading more and thereby taking both volume and value of our trade to higher level. Japanese official development assistance that has been flowing to India for so many years have certain basic philosophies. Besides providing equitable capital disbursement to, that is required capital disbursement to developing countries, Japan also puts certain conditions. That is, recipient country must follow a democratic process in their political administration. Number two, they should show continuously a decline in the military expenditure of the country. And third, they also should conform to the way in which Japanese planning happens for industrial development and national growth. Unless these three conditions are met, Japanese are not going to easily disburse their ODA loans to developing country. India meets all these three conditions. However, China never met some of these conditions. Japan made an exception to case of China. But however, we are a democratic country, that is a common system that we share with Japan also. Therefore, ODA philosophy that India has always met the conditions led by Japanese, and thus ODA has remained one of the most important sources of supply of loans in the form of capital that is very, very vital for India's development. And it is economic cooperation development, that is OECD actually, that has set certain philosophies as basic requirement for Japanese ODA that Japanese government has been meeting for over years. OECD requirement mentions that Japanese government, while providing loans, they can provide loans only to the government or government agencies, and also main objective of promotion of economic development and welfare in developing countries remains, and it also has seen concessional terms having a great element of at least 25%, which actually forms grant. ODA is broadly divided into bilateral aid, in which assistance is given directly to developing countries and to the governmental agencies, and also multilateral aid, which goes via international organizations. In the year 2013 and 14, Japanese government has committed official development assistance loan to India to the tune of 312 billion Japanese yen, which approximates to 16,400 crore, and disbursed about Japanese yen 145 billion. This approximates rupees 7,700 crore, and number of ongoing projects in India by the Japanese assistance are listed about 66. JICA stands for Japan International Cooperation Agency. This is the Japanese government agency, and this alone is in charge of implementing ODA commitments to different developing countries. And JICA has been very active since the year late 1950s, and it was the year 1958 when India received Japanese first loan to India. And technical cooperation and grant in aid also have been an integral part of ODA management by JICA. JICA is extending development assistance to contribute to the better relations with India. JICA provides bilateral aid in the form of technical cooperation and Japanese ODA loans and grant aid. JICA has ODA route fixed. This is how it comes. The chart explains about the organization of JICA through which ODA is routed to many developing countries including India. That is in the form of technical cooperation, that is upgrading the skills and enhancing their skills of the technical forces in developing countries, dispatching technical trainers from Japan to developing countries. India also has been a recipient of this, whereby we have enhanced the skill of our production workers in this country. Granted also come to India. In India's bilateral trade with Japan, the basket of our exports have been quite attractive and expanding from time to time. India's primary exports to Japan have been petroleum products, chemicals, elements, compounds, non-metallic, mineral ware, fish and fish preparations, metaphorous and ores, even scrap clothing, accessories, iron and steel products, textile yarn, fabrics and machinery. Of course, we should not forget to add from this year on rare earth material. When we make reference to Japanese investment in India, we have so far referred to official development assistance, and investment, that is foreign direct investment, also come not necessarily only through the Japanese government agency, that is JICA, but however it is the Japanese private huge business conglomerations, they also bring in their own investment to India, which had actually amounted to 1.7 billion during January-December 2014. FDI into India also has grown from 139 million barely in 2004 to all-time high of 5.5 billion yen in 2008. However, much of the investment, higher figure that we notice in the last 5-6 years, has been from the Japanese two big companies, Daiichi Sankyo Pharmaceutical Formulations into Ranbaxy Company and Docomo into Tata Pharm. However, very recently, that is just about a month ago, Japanese private huge telecommunication firm SoftBank Corporation have decided to invest in India, not necessarily in its monopoly sector, which is telecommunication and servicing the mobile phones and mobile services, etc. But however, newer area is alternative energy, that is solar power generation and also huge housing complexes. These are the two areas in which SoftBank Corporation in India will be making their huge investment, which is presently estimated to be $10 billion. But however, in the next one decade, given their interest, also expanding interest in solar energy generation and also in housing complexes, particularly the chosen area now is Chandigarh and around. This might take SoftBank investment in India to about close to $20 billion in the years to come. However, Government of India and Government of Japan have signed just in May 2015 for doubling of the Japanese investment into Indian farms in the next 5 years. Responding to Make India campaign, Japanese government also have very cooperatively, cordially trying to court more and more huge Japanese production companies in India in order to have joint ventures which might be expanding in the years to come. This is a slide which introduces you Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor, which crosses virtually 6 Indian states in the northern and western part of India. However, it is here that huge Japanese investment has been expected, some of which have already come in. Actually, initially when the project was envisaged, it was worth about $45 billion estimate. However, gradually cost escalation has taken it to $90 billion and now it is estimated to be more than $100 billion. Once envisaged, there will be huge 6 industrial townships coming up in this route, and also there will be 3 mega power generating stations. And given this, into India's infrastructure, which will actually multiply from the present capacity, Japanese will be finding their role very positive, very contributive. Other than the economic and security, that is political and cultural, we also have many other aspects in our bilateral relations. However, having said so much about the economic aspects of our bilateral relations, now I wish to introduce to our students on cultural aspects of India-Japan bilateral relations. Actually, cultural agreement that India signed with Japan in the year 1956 has been the basis for conducting our relations with Japan in cultural terms. The year 2008 formed 50 years of India's cultural relations with Japan, and we celebrated in both the countries with series of events arranged by our Indian embassy in Tokyo and Japanese embassy in India. However, the year 2012 constituted 60th anniversary of India's diplomatic relations establishment with Japan. This year also, that year I mean 2012 also has witnessed series of activities in both India and Japan, not necessarily by the government sources, by even by the cultural organizations in two countries at the civil area. However, it is the Ministry of Education, Government of Japan, which has been providing scholarships for Indian students and for Indian scholars also fellowships, and this is from the year 1958 itself. However, it is gradually Japan Foundation was founded in the year 1972. Since then, they also have been promoting Japanese culture in India as a part at world over. However, there is another Japanese academic research promotion association called the Japan Society for Promotion of Science, which also includes social sciences. Besides, a few private foundations also have been offering fellowships to Indian students and scholars to pursue their higher education and research in Japanese universities. The India-Japan governments also have signed agreements, that is specially academic agreements between the two Indian most popular research centers like ICHR, Indian Council of Historical Research. The other one is Indian Council of Indian Council of Social Science Research. These two Indian research councils have signed agreement with Japan Society for Promotions of Science last year when Indian Prime Minister Modi visited Japan at the 9th India-Japan Annual Prime Minister Level Summit. Besides cultural and economic relations between the two countries, we have recently more important sector dialogue debates going on between the two countries, that is in the area of security, which actually falls in the sphere of political relationship between the two countries. It is since 2008 that for the first time the Japanese Self-Defense Force maritime forces have taken part in the naval exercises in the Indian Ocean in the name of Malabar, in which actually US also participate. We have between the two countries at ministry level regular summits that have been institutionalized, and institutionalized arrangement between the two countries have been in the focus last few years, when actually the joint secretary level, the director general level, and also at the 2+2 dialogue we call, wherein sub-cabinet and senior officials participate, and also besides it foreign ministers participate annually in the dialogue in order to understand and cooperate in better understanding the Asia Pacific situation, where situation is changing very rapidly. Besides the agenda at the world level, where India and Japan participates in dialogues to understand each other better and cooperate better to resolve the international, that is global issues. Also, it is the educational area in which we see great exchange and facilities exchanging between the two countries. It's in India, both universities located in Delhi, one Delhi University, other Jawaharlal Nehru University, have full-fledged departments of Japanese studies and Japanese language and literature. Similarly, Japan Foundation is also very active throughout India in different major cities promoting Japanese language and culture all the time. New initiative of joint research and development on medical devices between All India Institute of Medical Science and Osaka University, which also has housed a major hospital and medical educational institutions, have entered into bilateral agreements, especially by signing memoranda of understanding for exchange of scholar and research knowledge between the two, which are actually been the basis now hereafter for exchanging information in medical science between the two institutes, but between the two nations. It was actually the year 2000 when the then Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihiro Mori, who visited India. That was the occasion when we signed the Japan-India Global Partnership for the 21st century. And this has gone on in helping two countries to dialogue regularly for understanding better and creating an awareness in most of the countries in the world about their partnership and its importance in resolving such global issues like poverty, health challenges, and also reforms relating to United Nations. The two countries have been understanding better. Both have been potential members in case United Nations actually introduces reforms and expands the memberships in Security Council, which is not likely to come immediately. However, two countries have been exchanging their ideas, and it is the annual Prime Minister level summit which is in place since 2006, have been very regularly held in the alternative capitals of India and Japan, that is Tokyo and New Delhi, wherein we get updates about bilateral relations improvement and also expanding economic, cultural, political relations between the two countries. That's how, to the structure, to the mechanism that we conduct India-Japan relations, an added part of the structure is PM level summit annually held in the two countries. Since the year 1993, when former Indian Prime Minister Manmohan Singh was the finance minister, series of reforms introduced in the financial sector of India in liberalizing our investment environment and also ODA facilitating in India. Prime Minister Manmohan Singh had been virtually representing in India as Prime Minister in the PM level summit since 2006 regularly. Being in Prime Minister's chair, he has really witnessed India's economy growing, India becoming a part of global economy and seeing economic environment in India liberalizing. It is in this, it is actually recognizing Prime Minister Manmohan Singh's service to improvement in quality terms of India-Japan bilateral relations that he was honored last year with the greatest civilian type, which is Paloma called, and Japanese Emperor has conferred this title on former Indian Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh. Continuing the momentum that was built in the first decade of this century, post Manmohan Singh's period, it is India's Prime Minister, which is present Prime Minister, that is Mr. Narendra Modi. He visited Japan as a part of India-Japan Prime Minister level summit last year from August 30th to September 3rd. During those 4 days that he was in Japan, actually that was a time when he, more than meeting Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, there was a decision to upgrade India's relationship to a special strategic and global partnership, and also launched India-Japan Investment Promotion Partnership, under which it was announced that Japanese government, including Japanese private sector investment to India in the next 5 years, will actually go to meet the level of US dollar $34.5 billion. But however, this also is said to be including the ODA part. Japanese Emperor Akihito and Empress Michiko also visited India, that is particularly only two cities, New Delhi and Chennai, from 30th of November to 6th of December. Now, to repeat the structure for the best conduct of India-Japan bilateral relations, I return to mechanism that is actually a structure to taking India-Japan relations to a stronger footing that it is today. To recount what has been already said, it is a treaty of peace that India signed with Japan in the year 1952, and then civil aviation agreement signed in the year 1956, then cultural agreement following year 1957, then agreement of commerce which facilitated trade between the two signed in the year 1958, and convention for avoidance of double taxation signed in the year 1960, then agreement on cooperation in the field of science and technology signed in the year 1985 when Rajiv Gandhi as Indian Prime Minister visited Tokyo, and then Japan-India Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement signed in the year 2011, which went into effect from the month of August of 2011, which is actually a big deal between India and Japan, taking our trade to a higher level, say in about next 5 to 10 years. particularly when we erase the tax by the two countries on 94% of the products that are traded between the two, and this would probably a big momentum that the entire business community both in India and in Japan are looking forward to. To be added to this is certainly this year will be the 10th year of instituting annual Prime Minister level summit between India and Japan, alternately to be met in Tokyo and New Delhi. To continue the mechanism, that is the structure for conducting bilateral relations, when we talk about, we should not forget the visit in the year of 2005 by Mr. Koizumi, that was Junichiro Koizumi, who was then Japanese Prime Minister. That was the year when he visited India to participate in the annual Prime Minister level summit meeting, and that was the year when actually India-Japan relationship was elevated to the global and strategic partnership level. The year 2011 at the end saw Prime Minister Noda, then of Japan, visited India again for the summit meeting only, and that was the meeting in which the two Prime Ministers have signed a joint statement titled Vision for the Enhancement of Japan-India Strategic and Global Partnership upon entering the year of 60th anniversary of establishment of diplomatic relation between the two countries. In addition to the annual summit meeting, annual strategic dialogue at the foreign minister level also have been held quite a few years, year after year. And these are the areas, these are the structure on which the bilateral relations are based and have been taken on a smooth ride hitherto. The potential that exists for future of India and Japan's bilateral relationship to be taken ahead of the present level have been plenty. Actually, economists world over have been studying India's growth prospects, and they have also seen that India's move up in the league table was actually a reminder of the boundless potential the country offers, despite the prevailing mood of pessimism from time to time, especially in the Indian circles. It is difficult to actually remain unimpressed by what Japanese have achieved since World War II end, and actually the technological marvel, the construction area, and also in the production and manufacturing area, the Japanese have achieved, and achieving even international market share and remaining on top for so many years have been to their credit. India also is quite well impressed by this. However, Japan and China have been number one great partners between the two. The political problem between them has been casting doubts about the future continued achievement and sticking to number one trade status between the two countries is giving some hope for India that Japanese investment from China, Japanese technology from China, and their capital from China would enter into India. However, this is not happening because compared to Japanese investment and business attention provided to India, it is the Southeast Asian region which has been providing a great prospect, a great promise, a great hope for the Japanese deployment of capital and technology. And in order to achieve India a strong educational system and prevailing in terms of quality is very necessary. However, Japanese have realized this. It is human resources in India that needs a enhancement in skill and technology also. More than technology, it is the techniques that the labor class that picks up to enable the Japanese production system in India to remain a highly productive base. And towards this, we have been also trying in India through educational system, through skill enhancement program, through skill development program nationwide in order to elevate the status of Indian workforce to meet the standards of the Japanese expectations. This is a slide depicting two national leaders from India and Japan, that is Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. These have been very young leaders, have been also touted as new leaders in the two countries which have potential in future. Both also claim to be great friends through their Twitter, through other forms of emails, etc. Both of them have following to the scale of millions world over. And however, each of them respect each other, each of them actually remain friends, and if they are strong friends, that must reflect in India and Japan relation going ahead from here to a better level. Another slide, a very important slide in that, His Excellency Japanese Emperor Akihito with his empress, that is Michiko. Both of them have visited India, which was very symbolic and also very substantial in terms of exchanging cultural symbols between the two countries. For the first time as emperor and as empress, they have visited last year India, visited two cities, India, that is New Delhi and Chennai, about which already certain references were made in the earlier slides. With the Second World War being over, Japan becoming a free country, in the post-World War II, India also becoming a free country, they have two countries have together prospered on separate uh, scale but parallelly. However, the political relationship between India and Japan have remained very warm, and also in the economic area we have seen how two economies have involved each other, also with each other in moving ahead. Japanese actually have left their imprint on the Indian economy. Some of the most Japanese popular major trading and manufacturing companies such as Toyota, Honda, Nissan, Suzuki, Toshiba, NEC, Sony, Panasonic, Hitachi have all their either manufacturing or marketing presence in India and their facilities too. And also this is expanding gradually. With Japanese commitment to Indian economy, more ODA, more investment in the years to come, only Japanese operations scale is but to improve and increase. The signing of the joint statement towards Japan-India strategic and global partnership has been one of the milestones in our bilateral relation. Japanese self-defense forces and also Indian Navy, which are taking part in naval exercises in the Indian Ocean called Marabal, is to be repeated this year again in the month of October 2015, and Japan is invited to participate in this. The development of Indian aircraft industry is expecting US to amphibian aircraft cooperation from the Japanese transfer of technology. Once this happens, Indian aircraft industry will receive Japanese technology, our production will be of better quality, and deployment of better aircraft in our military also will be displayed gradually. This is expected to come very soon. As we have examined before the structure of India-Japan relations, for conduct of which there has been no shortage of structure, there is no shortage of mechanism. But however, when we compare Indian relations with other major powers, whether it is within within Asia or at the global level, we see the pace, the momentum of India-Japan relations have not been comparable to that of India and Europe or India and United States. However, even smaller countries in the chain of Southeast Asian countries have been able to attract Japanese investment to such a great scale, and Japanese have virtually over the years created a vertical production alliance in the Asia Pacific, covering mostly the East Asian countries. Such a thing has not been extending to India. India's expectation of Japanese capital, Japanese investment, Japanese technology via ODA is simply remaining as an expectation which has not been on par with what the small Southeast Asian countries have been receiving. However, it is here that India pins its hope for the coming years. It is promising to see such projects in India from the Japanese side to include investment climate improvement in several Indian cities and Indian states. For example, Gujarat, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, besides many other projects being housed there, also have seen transformation in such sectors as transport, power, water, sanitation, agriculture, forestry, health, and much of the ODAs have already gone into these. And the newer form of ODA, particularly GLANT and not the loan, is going hereafter to Canal Solar Power Plant in Gujarat, which is a grant and not a loan. India is a democratic country for a long time, Japan is a democratic country. We have this tradition deeply rooted in both the countries, and this is going to be a sharing point between the two of us, two of the countries, both for dealing at different issues and different level in the region of Asia and the global level at large. Finally, the example United Nations is set to reform, though very recently China and United States have decided not to go for reforms. In case reforms come through, and India and Japan are to be sure candidates to become a permanent member in the Security Council. Both India and Japan have better understanding of each other, and they cooperate in fighting piracy, in working for global peace, in eradicating health challenges in the world, and also in removing piracy. And more than all this, it is the different dimensions of India-Japan relations that are attractive, that are expanding within and growing stronger and becoming well equipped to face the regional and global problem gradually. Therefore, it is safe to conclude that India and Japan bilateral relations are treated as one of the most important, whether at not alone bilateral relation level, but even at the Asian regional level, at the global level at large. I hope by this time you will be in a position to judge how important the two relations are.